And like I look at it and I'm like, all right, where's the rest of it? And they're like, no, no, this is it. I'm like, this is it. I'm like, come on, man. Like we're now they had some bigger props in different areas for more advanced stuff, but for just the basic structural collapse, I was like, this is it. And they're like, that's it, man. And I was like, I I mean, I can recreate some of this. Like,
Thoughts and opinions by Job Talks podcast members and guests are not representative of any department, organization, or city. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Job Talks podcast. You know the drill. Please feel free to like and share and subscribe to our channel. We got another guest in the house today, and Barry, who do we got with us today?
So what's up, guys? We're fortunate to have my close friend Austin Graham from Slidell, Louisiana. I initially met Austin down at training in Miami at a CMC ropes class, and we hit it off. I was fortunate to be able to soak up some knowledge from him. So Austin, thank you for coming on the show. We're super happy to have you, man.
I'm honored to be here, man. I was pretty stoked when you asked. You were like, man, would you be interested? I was like, of course I'd be interested. And so, anything to help you guys out, absolutely.
Well, thank you. So we've dived into the training world a little bit. So when we were talking about, when we initially had the conversation about, hey, who could we reach out to regarding, training and implementing training programs, you were the first person I thought of, just because one of the first things that I vividly remember about you was how passionate you were for developing training programs and like kind of like just imagining the possibilities of what can be done, either with limited resources or a lot. And I was super impressed with how passionate Slidell was and how what you guys were doing. So I thought it would be great to have you on to kind of share what you've built, where Slidell's at, and where you guys hope to go in the future, and just offer those tips and tricks for all the guys and gals that are listening that to bring up their own programs.
Absolutely. So I will start off by saying you said what I built, and I will let you know right now it was not just me.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
I had some great guys with me, and helped me along the way, and it was definitely a team effort. Um, and everyone brought something to the table, and that was the most important thing was
absolutely.
us working as a team and collaborating our ideas and like just bouncing those ideas off each other, and that just made our props that we built even better. So
Absolutely.
I think if one person goes at trying to develop programs or building props alone, they're going to struggle, man. And if they would just humble themselves and ask for help, and there's tons of help out there, and we'll talk about that a little bit
Yeah,
later. So
absolutely. So, before we get into kind of the meat and potatoes of the conversation, do you want to kind of tell the listeners about yourself, your fire service background, how you got to where you are today?
sure. So my name's Austin Graham. So I've been in the fire service since 2008, so about 15 years. Started off volunteering with Pastor Christians, volunteer in Mississippi. So actually I am from Mississippi. I live in Mississippi and I commute over to Slidell, Louisiana, which is about 30 miles from me. It's right on the border, Mississippi and Louisiana. So I'm on the Mississippi Gulf Coast, and like I said, I got started in 2008. I Prior to that, I was a machinist, and so was doing that, and going to a shop every day, and doing production work. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed making things, but just going to the same building every day for years, I was like, man, I need some excitement in my life, and so ended up getting on with the volunteer group, and then kind of got actually before I even went to 1001. I had my hazmat tech. I was a rope tech. I got all that as a volunteer my first year,
Wow.
um, and just because I had a bunch of buddies. I grew up. My dad was a fireman for a little while when I was younger, and So I'd always had an interest in it. And actually, I was an explorer when I was 15. I was the chief of my little explorer group, and my best friend was my assistant chief. Man, we had a great time with that. And
That's
then,
awesome.
yeah, and so we got pictures of us when we were teenagers sitting on a car that we cut up, for a Boy Scout demonstration. And so, it's kind of cool to look back. I'm 40 years old now, and look back at at some of that stuff. It's pretty cool that that we actually had the sense to keep take pictures and do that stuff. But so like I said, volunteered 2008, 2009. I finally got hired on. I was trying to get on. It took about 6 months to get on, and I started in D'Iberville, Mississippi, right north of Biloxi, and that was my introduction to the fire service. And I was just eager to learn. And one of the good things I took away from my first department was very limited funds, and especially for training. And so, here I was a little bit older. I had a little bit of life experience, and I'm sitting here going, I'm 25, 26 years old. I'm saying, all right, I need to maximize my education in this field, and how can I do that? And so, like I said, on a shoestring budget. Luckily, in the state of Mississippi, I was fortunate. A lot of the technical rescue and the hazmat programs were grant funded, so I was able to get a lot of those classes free. And so obviously, I took those very quickly, got all those certifications, and then then I'm standing there going, okay, well, what's next?
Yeah.
Well, and so then I ended up doing a lot of free classes, which we'll talk about later in the chat here. I got a little section on that. But I ended up taking a bunch of free classes, just building my resume. And it was a great experience, especially at that small department, talking 30 guys total, that including the chief and admin. So, just the difficulties of a small department of, you want to do things properly, and, and go about that, but you can't, because limited funding or limited manpower, things like that. So eventually I was decided, okay, man, it's time for me to move on to something bigger. I won't say better, because I tell guys all the time, especially when we have newer guys. When I was at training academy, always tell the newer young guys coming in, and said, man, if I could go back to the first 5 years of my career and I could just stay there, that time span, if that's if I could magically live in that 5 year period, I said, I don't care how much money they paid me. I said, I would just stay right there. I said, those were probably the 5 best years of my life. I learned so much. I never laughed so much, had so much fun. It was the best, riding
Just
in the
like
back.
a sponge,
And
those first few years. You know what I mean? Just like sitting and enjoying it and like taking it all in, man. I 100% understand that.
yeah, and the guys I was with, man, I grew with, they molded me, they shaped me, and we were just a tight knit group. And eventually I got promoted to operator, and they were like, all right, well, you're gonna have to move shifts. And I almost thought, I'm not going to take this promotion because I don't want to move. I don't want to leave my guys, but I'm also, goal oriented. And I'm like, well, I'm going to take this promotion. But that was kind of the thing that led to me to saying, all right, it's time to move on, because, that little magical period ended, and it was, then it was time to focus on me. And so I ended up leaving there, and I ended up in Slidell, Louisiana. I had a couple guys that I knew that worked over there, and they, one of them called me and said, "Hey, man, look, you need to come put in over here," because they heard I was looking. Um, and I don't know if y'all want to get into it, of all the differences of Mississippi
Yeah.
versus Louisiana.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
Hey, man, this is
okay.
your show.
Yeah.
So,
No.
one of the, well, and I always tell people, one of the biggest factors of leaving Mississippi, because I will say Mississippi is very prideful in the fire service, about their fire service in the state. And the training academy in Mississippi, if you ever get a chance, I put it. It's one of the top training facilities in the country. It is a beautiful facility, top notch instructors. Um, Mississippi's last in a lot of things, but the Fire Academy is not one of them. And
Very
some
cool.
some amazing instructors there.
No,
And
it seems like a lot of the programs down south are very, very strong.
yes, and especially the technical rescue stuff with Mississippi State Fire Academy. Like I said, they have the props, they have the personnel, and all that. So, but the big factor for me was the retirement. So Mississippi at the time it was 25-year system. Now it's a 30-year system, and you get after 30 years you get 50% of your pay. So, and and Mississippi pay is not very high. So 50% of not much of anything,
Yeah,
didn't really equal up to a whole lot.
Right.
yeah,
So you had Louisiana, which paid a good bit more, but they also had a better retirement system in as far as the potential. You earned 3.3% a year. So if you did a 30-year career in Louisiana, you got 99.9% of your pay with
Oh wow.
dang,
decent pay. So
wow,
yes, and
It's one of those
and
things,
you do a
man, where
3-year
we're like,
drop.
we always say like, listen, if you could do it for free, you do it for free, right? But
Right.
you gotta also make decisions that take care of you and your family, and that sounds like a no brainer in your case.
Absolutely. And
yeah,
so, that was the deciding factor with me saying, okay, I'm going to jump ship over to Louisiana, and I'm basically going to start over there. I had 6 years in the system of Mississippi, and I was all at 6 years I was kind of like, all right, I'm on the fence. Either I'm committed to Mississippi or it's time to move on. If I stay any longer, I'm kind of stuck. So for me, it was that around that time, I needed to make that decision. And so I went and pulled the trigger, and it worked out great for me. So um, ended up, like I said, going to. So I keep saying Slidell. Slidell Fire is probably what most people would you know recognize, but technically we're St. Tammany Fire District number one, and that's a mouthful. So I usually just say Slidell Fire. So but so went over there, and 3 years in, opportunity once again presented itself. I was a firefighter, been there 3 years, so now I've got roughly 9, 10 years on the job, and we had a training position come open, and I'd always been interested in training. I enjoyed going to class and learning and things, and I always told myself, I'd love to be an instructor one day. So there was an opportunity training academy, and they didn't fill the position. It went unfilled. Saw the chief of training walk by his office one day. I said, "Hey, chief, you fill that position?" He said, "No." I said, "Well, man," I said, "I'm interested." I said, "But I haven't been here long enough. I haven't, really 3 years to me was not long enough to really gain some of these senior guys, earn that
yeah.
respect, and he told me he didn't care. He said, "Put in." He goes, "I need somebody," and so I put in, and ended up getting the position. I did have a little bit of competition. I had a 20-year captain put in also at the same time, and it went up. Me and him, I was thought surely they're going to pick this 20-year captain over a 3-year firefighter, but things worked out, and they ended up choosing me, and so I went into the training division, and I did 5 years there. So this past March, I actually took myself out of training and put myself back on the truck. So I've been on the truck a few months, back on the truck a few months now. So I'm back down to firefighter again, back where I left off. But
Yeah.
you know what? I'm okay with that. And you know, I enjoyed the training. I learned so much in training. It was a wonderful experience, and we're going to talk about some of that experience today. But and I wouldn't trade it for the world. Had a great chief of training who supported me and really pushed me. Sometimes when I didn't like it,
Yeah.
But
That's how you know they're the good ones.
yeah, and the guys that I worked with too, my training officers, other that I worked with, you know, I'm pretty laid back kind of guy. I just kind of go with it, you know, and then some people are, you know, wound a little tighter than I am, and
Yeah.
I can drive them crazy because of how lackadaisical I am sometimes about things. And you know, that's something I learned in training. You know, we had some hard conversations with each other. You know, we'd sit in a room and shut the door and say, all right, this is what the issue I got with you. You know, and
Yeah.
you know, and I'm not scared of hard conversations, and I can take it. You know, and it was good, but you know, like I said, but after 5 years, 5 days a week, I missed my 2 days off. We worked 24/48s.
Okay.
I missed having days off during the week to to do things. My wife works it from home now. My dad's retired. Both my parents are retired. You know, so now I can, you know, on a Tuesday I can go fishing with my dad if I want to. You know, and
Nothing
if
wrong
I'm
with
off.
that.
Yeah, you know, so that work-life balance, you know,
Yeah.
that it made sense to go back to the trucks, and I took a little bit of pay cut, you know, but you know, it's just money, you can't take it with you. So,
Yeah.
you know, and I'm fortunate, you know, my wife does well, so, um, but so yeah, we so that's where I'm at. Also, I've never left my volunteer department that I started with in 2008. So I'm currently the assistant chief with them as well. So
It's awesome.
I enjoy that, you know, working with them. And so even though I've left the training academy in Slidell, I still go out there and help and do things and contribute. And the same for my volunteer department. They're actually a combination department. So I help with the
Oh,
volunteers
nice.
and the full time there. They're a very small department. So, you know, help with them. So it's, you know, that's my hometown. I
Yeah.
wish I wish they could afford me because I'd love to work for my hometown, you know,
Yeah.
and because I know everybody under the sun in town. So, but, you know,
And
but
it's
I'm happy
important
where I'm
to
at.
yeah,
So,
it's important to give back. I always tell people like I started as a call firefighter, so same deal. Like they have very small. I think they have six career members, and the rest of the force is supplemented by call members, and that's where I started. I started at 16 as an auxiliary firefighter. So I yeah, it's always one of the conversations we have is like when you go to the big city, I always say like it's important to highlight the work that these call and volunteer departments are doing. They're being innovative with less, and they have to do it all. Like so, in the city, like you have people that might be strictly focusing on engine company operations or truck company operations, but in these smaller departments, you have to kind of be a jack of all trades. You got to be proficient with
yeah.
everything.
I agree. Yeah, and you know, and so you know, Mississippi is not a very rich state, so there's not a lot of money to go around. So you know, cutting my teeth in Mississippi and learning to do, like you said, do more with less. I remember, you know, showing up on big fires, and there's like only five of us, and that's it. You know,
Nice.
that's all you got. And
Yeah.
and then I move over to Louisiana to Slidell, where you know we were running 40, 45, 50 guys on a shift, and
Yep.
you know we have a commercial structure fire, and you make one interior attack, and then your bell goes off, and they're like, get out. It's like, well, I'm used to go until my bell's barely ringing, and they're like,
Yeah.
go hit rehab, and I'm like, what is rehab?
Right.
And you know, so it was definitely an adjustment whenever I went to the larger department. And I will say it is nice to get a break, you know,
Yeah.
and not have to work for hours on end.
It
But
is. It is definitely a culture shift,
yes,
because we're pretty similarly staffed. Our minimum manning now is 50, and if you're pretty much not on that first due or second due assignment, like you're scrambling for work, you're waiting in line to get in there, and
absolutely.
so that's the benefit of being in a smaller town. There's no shortage of work to be done. Sometimes
Yeah,
it's a lot, but you're definitely going to get a well-rounded experience.
you know,
So
Yeah.
us being silly northerners, I do have a question about so you guys are St. Tammany Fire District. Do you guys have do you have parishes down there? That's like your county based?
So in Louisiana, only state in the country, we don't call them counties, we call them parishes. So and growing up in Mississippi, so close to Louisiana, we have counties in Mississippi, but we just automatically knew, hey, parish, when you're talking about Louisiana. So um, because sometimes I get a funny look when I travel across, in the country, and I'll be like, yeah, I work in St. Tammany Parish, and they're like, parish? What's a parish?
Yeah.
Like a church or?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but so yeah, so we're actually in our parish. It's a very large parish. It's almost the size of basically two counties in Mississippi. So this thing is probably close to 50 miles wide. The parish is, and it covers
Wow.
quite a bit of ground, but it's
Yeah.
also a lot of marsh and swamp areas. So, but
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, we're
we're
6.2 square miles, so I'm looking at the 186 square miles. I'm like,
yeah.
that's a
So I
hell of a
love to say,
difference.
so we're 186 square miles, and 65 of those square miles is wetlands that we cover.
Yeah.
Um, but it's still a big run, and we cover the city of Slidell. That's our main area, but we also cover the outlying areas around Slidell that's outside the city limits. There's uh, I think there's only 13 parishes now, some of them combined. Some of the smaller rural, not parishes, fire districts. I'm sorry. Some of the fire districts absorbed some of the other ones, so we're down to like 12 or 13 fire districts in the parish, and there's only one city fire department in the parish. One city's got its own little pocket, but everywhere else is a fire district, and
Gotcha.
we're managed by the parish itself. So think of it as we're run by the county. We're a county fire service,
Okay.
and
Okay.
we get our money from millage and tax revenue. So the upside to that is that we don't have to answer to any city. So there's no city reaching into our coffers and pulling money out to supplement other costs within the city. And so for our department with 190-ish employees, with 8 stations, and we have one under construction, or number 9 under construction, and a 10th is being planned.
Oh, wow.
Our annual budget is 24, a little over 24 million a year. So we
Wow.
have a very, very large budget, and we have nice things. We have
Yeah.
That's awesome.
we have
No,
brand new
I was
fleets.
blown away. I mean, I had such a blast with you guys in Miami, like, um, with Drew and the gang, and but I was blown away. I was like, I can't, because at that point I was a self-funded operation, man. I was down there just trying to soak up some training, and I couldn't believe
Yep.
that was like the first exposure I had had. I'm like, dang, your department sent you guys down here. It's incredible. Um,
So
but
yeah, and
yeah,
I'll get
talking to
into
Drew and Tim and the gang.
I'll get into the Miami thing, kind of how we got into all that,
Yeah,
when I get into building the
yeah,
the programs out. But yes, I got some good stories with that.
yeah. No,
So, but
Drew and Tim were probably some of my favorite people from that class. It was awesome.
yeah,
So I
so
guess right off the bat, right? So when you got to the training division, what was the landscape like? Was it a pretty developed program? Like, what, I want to say, what did you inherit? But when you
yeah,
walked in, what
so
what were you walking into?
so when I took on this training role, I had a chief of training and one other training officer, and then myself. So it was, me, green as can be, as a training officer. I had, both the chief of training had just got promoted a year prior to the chief of training. So both these guys were training officers for almost 10 plus years. They kind of had been the
Wow.
staple at this
Wow.
training academy. And so one of my first days, I went to my chief of training, and I said, hey, let's take a walk around the grounds. I said, I want to know, what is your vision? What is your plan for this academy? So we have 6 acres that we lease. So we're on a National Guard base. We leased it from the National Guard. It was a deal they worked out years ago where they were shutting down military bases across the state, some of the National Guard bases, and they were trying to find a reason to keep it open. So they allowed police and fire to uh, lease property and put their training academies out there. And we have so the PD has shooting ranges and in their academy, and we have our 6 acres, and then we have FBI has their own training area. We have we got some federal agencies out there as well. So
Interesting.
um, and
I was
we
gonna
do a
ask
lot of
if they let you
collaboration.
guys use tanks or not. Do they let you guys use the tanks or not?
Um, Actually, if we ask after hours, they'll let us get out there and play a little bit. And I'll get into that as well because I had to actually borrow some of their stuff to build my props, and that's kind of part of my spiel about how to you know do more with less. But
We need some machine guns to clear this brush.
yeah, but
I'm in.
so we walked the grounds. He gave me his vision, and I said, "All right." I said, "I'm in." So his name is John Bauer, Chief Bauer, and I told him, I said, "All right, man." I said, "I'm Team Bauer. Let's do it. This is
Yeah.
this is the direction you want to head." I said, I love it, and let's make it happen." And so then at the time, all we had was a tower. So we had a tower that we burned on the first floor. It had two giant rooms to burn in. So no walls, just big open rooms, and then it was a 4-story tower and then the roof we could rappel off of. And outside of that, we didn't have a whole lot. We had a, a center block house that they had built. One of the old chiefs started the project and never finished it. It had turned into a storage building, and our other storage building we had was taken over by special operations. They needed somewhere to put all their boats and all their equipment. So we didn't have that building that was on our grounds. We had no access to it. And other than that, we had a little training with a little engine bay to pay engine bay, and so we that was it, man. And what really kicked it off for me though, so we had all these ideas, but we really didn't know. All right, how do we even make all this happen?
Yeah.
How do we even go about this? And we weren't quite sure because we just didn't know.
Yeah.
And so what happened? I ended up asking to go to Teaks in Texas, Texas A&M. I went to Structural Collapse 1 and 2, 80-hour program, 10 days straight, just great class. Physically miserable because you're 10 days. It was Saturday, Sunday, 10 days straight. There was no break, and just powered through. But prior to that, I'd always dreamed of going to Teaks. So um, and I kind of in my mind I had Teaks on this pedestal. I had it up, in
Yeah.
my mind. And so I go to Teaks, and I'm so excited to be there. I'm like, these are the guys. All my instructors were at 9/11. Like they were the
Yeah.
second wave they were in the hole at 9/11. Like these guys, you just looked at them. They were like they walked out of a movie. They
Yeah.
were
The
just
real deal.
they they were yeah they're the real deal. They're all Texas Task Force One founding members. These guys had done it all, man, and you just look at them in awe. Listen to their stories, and
Yeah.
so man, I was so excited. And we go out to the little training field that we're doing the structural collapse, and like I look at it and I'm like, all right, where's the rest of it? And they're like, oh no, this is it. I'm like, this is it. I'm like, come on, man. Like we're now they had some bigger props in different areas for more advanced stuff, but for just the basic structural collapse, I was like, this is it. And they're like, that's it, man. And I was like, I I mean, I can recreate some of this. Like with my machining and welding background, I was like, I can do this. So I took a bunch of pictures and some of their bigger props. I went out, in the evenings. I went and kind of crawled around on them just to kind of see how they did things. And look, and I'm not, downplaying Teaks. It was amazing. Like it was,
Yeah.
it was still even, they had it minimal for a reason, and because that's all you needed, and
Yeah.
they didn't, but so I came back and I told my chief, I was like, look, I want to build confined space structure collapse area, like that's where I want to start. So then we're like, all right, well, how are we going to do that? So basically we're gonna build some props here, and so just for the conversation, we have, like I told you, we have a pretty decent sized budget. So when we need things like equipment and things like that, as long as it's not something outrageous, we can pretty much get it. Talking about
Get it.
machinery and things and materials,
Yeah.
but we tried to do it on a shoestring budget just because at the time uh, the department was not dumping a lot of money into training because there wasn't a whole lot there,
Yeah.
and and they weren't. It's not that they didn't believe in us or anything like that. It just wasn't high on their priority list.
Yeah. So
So
almost like a trial period, a proof of
yeah,
concept.
so my chief, he just completed his first year as chief of training. They're still trying to figure him out, and they knew what he was as a training officer, but now he's in charge and he's got this
Yeah.
new vision. Where the old chief of training, he was just kind of biding his time, a little bit. I think he tried to do some things, but got a lot of pushback. He was a great guy. I'm still friends with him as well, but I conversate with him regularly. He's works with the State Fire Academy now, but so we, you know, so no matter what, if you got the money or if you don't, you can get things built. You got to be creative with things. And so what we did was we went out and just drove around, and we went by businesses, industry, and found, hey, what's sitting around in a field, what's got grass growing all around it, is that something
Yeah.
we can use? So, and in a little bit, we'll get into the pictures here. Um, but we acquired a bunch of material at no cost or at very minimal cost. So, it's and it was and look, and all it took was going to talk to somebody. If what's the worst they can do? They can tell you no, right?
Yeah.
So,
Right.
and so but the other thing we also ran into was we'd go out and we'd find all these materials, concrete culverts and blocks and tanks and all this stuff that we're like, hey, we could take this stuff and build it into something. But they'd also be like, well, here, won't you take all this over here? And it's like, well, I really don't need all that. But my chief, he would always say, you don't kick a gift horse in the mouth. So he's
Yeah.
like, yeah, we'll take whatever you want, and he's like, we'll just get
Yeah.
rid of what we don't use, and but
Yeah.
because we're doing, they're doing us a favor by giving it to us, and we're doing them a favor by taking it off their hands. So if
Yeah.
we'll take all of it,
Yeah.
and so so then we acquired the materials. Well, then it's like, all right, I got all this stuff. What can I do with it? And that's where that collaboration comes in. Finding out, hey, so and so's as an electrician, so and so's a welder, so and so's a plumber, so and so, frames houses, and it's like, hey, we'll get them over here and let's look at this stuff and let's get some ideas going. And
Yeah.
so, but
That's where I would be. I don't have any. I would love at some point. I think to be in the training division and to spend some time there. I feel like the most intimidating thing would be like me being worried about like, oh, like who regulates, like is there some like law that says like I can't do this or I can't do that, or like who that
Right.
I feel like that would be my biggest intimidating factor.
so and that was a conversation we had on a daily basis. It was, hey, can we even legally do this? It's like, does it have to be, you know, NFPA stamped?
Yeah, like who
Now,
blesses off on this?
right.
Right.
And so that there was a lot of learning on that. I will say, at the end of our projects, especially if we built them out of, brick and mortar type, stuff that we kind of threw together ourselves, uh, we would basically reach out. Would find structural engineers to come out and look at everything. And now we'd have to pay them, but come look. They'd look at our prop, and then they would basically write up a letter and stamp it saying that it was sound, sound, wasn't going to fall over and kill anybody type thing. But we also, once we built things, handrails and anywhere we could be safe, we could. Um, I will say, my department were very, liability conscious as far as, hey, can this come back on us?
Yeah.
Right.
Especially because, and one of the visions that my chief had was taking our small little academy and turning it into a regional training facility for the area. And so our goal is to bring in other agencies from around the area and let them train on our props. So they need to be as safe as possible.
Yeah.
So it's one thing to kind of let our guys get out there and kind of go willy nilly on things, but when you're dealing with federal agencies and state task forces and things like that, and they're out there doing some serious training, and you don't have the safety precautions up, it definitely gets you in a trick bag. But
Yeah.
that was the big thing. We did learn a lot though, that a lot of departments build things, mainly out of Connex box. That's kind of the big thing, was out of Connex boxes.
Yeah, I feel like you
Um,
see that everywhere now.
yeah. So, and we actually went to, I don't know if y'all have ever heard of the Fire Training Network out of
Yeah. Yep.
Indiana. So we actually went there and took their Connex box building class. It's a 3-day class, and they basically teach you how to build props, burn props out of these Connex boxes. And it
Very
don't have to
cool.
be, you don't have to burn them either. You can just use them for as a structure, for
Right.
search and rescue, whatever But we that was definitely a good class as well. But like I said, at the end of the day, if you do everything possible, just trying to make sure that you cover yourself, then you'll be good. So to kind of get started with everything here, so I know some of the people listening can't see, but basically we like I said, we're riding around and we found a old diesel tank sitting in a field, and so we went up and they were cutting them up at the time. There was a guy with a torch literally cutting as we pulled up, and they had 4 or 5 of these tanks sitting in a field, and it was the company we bought all of our diesel from. And so we went out there and said, hey man, look, notice some of these tanks are out there. Um, would you be interested in getting rid of them? And basically they're like, well, we can't give you the tank. And we're like, they said, because we could get money for scrapping it. And we're like, all right, well, how much would you get from scrapping that tank? Because if we bought it from you, now you're not paying that guy to cut it up either. I'm sure he's got a cost. And
Yeah.
so we ended up working out a deal, $800 for that tank.
Oh wow.
In the picture there, it's a 40-foot long by 20-foot round tank. It was an old diesel tank. It was normal. It was on it. It was horizontal, like it had a set of skids on it that kept it from rolling around. But someone had already cut them off, and but so they said $800. So we asked, went and asked for $800. They said, yeah, no problem. And we already had, and that was, well, and to kind of backtrack, we had 2 tanks, probably 10-foot by 40-foot round, on our facility that someone installed 20 years ago. They put them horizontally and built some decking on top, and they were kind of trying to use them for confined space, but no one had touched them in years. They were
Yeah.
rusty and just sitting literally in a field and on our facility. So we got this tank, and then I had to hire a crane to go pick it up, and they put it on a little flatbed trailer because it was heavy, but it wasn't that heavy. So
Yeah.
just a
I was
pickup
gonna
truck
ask if
pulled it.
that 800 included shipping and handling.
No, so we now so Now keep in mind, I had to rent this crane. Once again, plan ahead. We had other projects that we were working on at the same time, which we'll see some pictures of here in a little bit. So it was strategically planned of picking up this tank on that trailer in the field that it was in, then drive that crane driving to our facility to offload the tank, and then to stand the tank upright. So we wanted a vertical tank that we could use, and we were going to basically we had it saddlebags welded underneath it to bolt it to a concrete form that was in the ground that from a prior prop that was torn down, and we had to secure it with saddlebags basically welded on the bottom of it and bolted it to this concrete pad, or it was like a cross basically
Yeah.
built there above the ground. So we had them stand it up, and then the welder's on, and I had to coordinate the welder to be there. I had to pay him, pay a crane, um, and then to maximize my crane time, my crane, because it's costing me per day basically.
Yeah.
And we had and outside these pictures that you see here, so one, this middle picture is loading the tank, offloading the tank with the crane, and then the third picture is us. We welded tabs on one end so we could stand it up vertically using, and then pick it up with the crane to set it on the concrete pad there. So, and then I think going to the next slide here.
So, Austin, is there when you're using tanks like that, right, for confined, is there like do those come? And this might be a stupid question. Like, do you have to clean them? Do they come clean? Like, how do you ensure that it's safe to
I was saying
use?
the same thing
Yes.
about like diesel
So
fuel.
you can get them professionally cleaned, and they'll come with a certificate of professionally cleaned. That's especially if you're, depending on if there was a very hazardous product that they were using in that tank, that's very, hazardous to health. So you definitely want to get it certified clean. Now, that tank had diesel in it. And once again, kind of going back to us just kind of still figuring things out, um, it was we couldn't see inside of it, so there was no access really to get inside that tank, because they didn't use it, they didn't clean it or nothing. It was meant for diesel,
Yep.
uh, and so um, we eventually, once we stood it up and got it set in place, we actually cut a safety door into it so that if something was, we cut the safety door in case something happened inside. That's our safety. Get in, get them out quickly, whatever the emergency is. If someone truly was having an emergency in there, and then I also had the welder. We ordered basically two hatches. I put a hatch at the very top of the tank and one at the lower, at the other end towards the ground, so that we can get in and out. And then the safety door was on the opposite side of the bottom hatch, so that we could get in, like I said, quickly. But what it
Quickly, yeah.
also did, it allowed us to get inside the tank and really inspect the condition of the tank inside. And it was really, really rusted inside. There was like just a coating in there, and you would just kind of hit the wall and it would just fall off. So all the way up, just start coming down. So eventually, what we ended up doing was getting there and just kind of banging on the walls, get it all to come down, and then we just scooped it all out. And it smelled like diesel for a good while, but we had it open and aired it out, and
Yeah.
eventually the smell went away. And
Let it
uh,
off gas.
yeah, and so now you go in there, you can smell it a little bit, but barely. And so we, like I said, that's make sure you're planning all this stuff. When I had the welder there, I said, I need you to weld these saddlebags at the bottom. I need you to put these hatches on. I need you to cut me a door. That was all pre-planned before we even went and picked the tank up. We didn't. Like I said, we're trying to think of everything before, uh, you know, we just started calling people and trying to get things done.
Yeah.
The
And maximizing,
Yeah,
obviously, like you said, operating with a limited budget and making sure that you're being a good steward
well,
of the money and
right. And not only that, but if I had to get that welder out there, three or four different times, you know, his schedule might be booked up for months. So,
Yeah.
you know, I had him that day, and I was like, look, this is what I need done, and can we get it all done today? And of course, he's basically they and we negotiated a flat rate for the job. That's another thing. Don't ever, get into negotiate. If you do have to pay someone, you tell them by the job. Don't, if you start doing by the hour, a lot of people take advantage. I'm sure y'all see it, especially when you spec things out. I'll use, if there's any building maintenance or anything that that y'all might deal with, it's always three times the cost. Versus like, hey, I got a guy that will come do this for $100. Well, this guy over here, well, we got to get three bids when the lowest bid was $800. It's like, yeah, but I got a guy for 100. Well, he's not he's not a registered vendor or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
So
Right.
people, I get aggravated about that kind of stuff. So I definitely
No,
try to be a
that's
good
one thing I
steward of
never
the money.
understood as far as like bill, and like I understand with like city contracts, like I never understood like why this is obviously like we could talk for hours, but like why cities go with like the low bid, like, and because you know what product you're gonna get, like why can't we just go
Right.
with like the middle bid? It's like, hey, it's
Yeah,
not the best, but it's not the worst. You know what I mean? Like,
absolutely.
so
But yeah, and so back to the crane. So in these slides here, these are some of the concrete blocks that we acquired from a concrete plant. Um, Basically, your concrete plants still have basically leftover concrete, that they didn't, get all out of the truck. And if they run back to the yard with that concrete, they typically have a form sitting there for them to dump excess concrete instead of washing it out on a job site. I mean, and if it's a good bit, it's just too much for a washout. They'll
yeah,
go back, they'll dump it, and so if you look at these pictures, you'll see these blocks. They're 4 foot by 3 foot rectangular blocks, and and some of them even have like a rock design in them
texture.
because the foot, yeah, it gives them texture and stuff. So what we did was, like I said, driving by and saw in a concrete, yard in the back of the yard with a bunch of grass growing up, a bunch of these blocks just stacked, 12 foot high, and just a huge amount of block. And so went knocked on the door, said, "Hey, what y'all doing with those blocks?" And they said, nothing. You want them? But they said we usually sell them, but they've been, no one's buying them, so we just need them gone because we would love to have this field back to put other things. And now they gave them to us, and so they loaded them up for us on site with their loader. So we had to hire an 18 wheeler to move these. And so they would load them. But I had to have something to offload them. So we rented a excavator, track hoe, and I bought a big chain and just hooked them with the bucket. And so I grew up around machinery, so I'm capable of running heavy machinery, and I won't say I'm a professional at it, but I can get the
Better than
job
me.
done. Yeah, and so we offloaded these blocks, and got them onto our site. And then some of the culverts that you see in these pictures here, because it's like I said, this is us getting started. We finally settled on a design. I wanted basically a squared building or structure with multiple entry points. This was something I got from Teaks,
Mm.
from their rubble piles. And so a lot of the culverts and things were donated from a local construction company that does road work and things, drainage. So they had a whole field full of culverts that were left over from jobs, or had chips or breaks in them that just wasn't up to code for their job sites.
But
So
still
they got,
perfectly usable
yeah.
otherwise. Yeah.
And you can see actually in this third picture, if you look in the very back, you can see I have all of those pipes stacked back there. And so those were, and then once again, the company loaded all those pipes for us, but we had to get them transported. So there was a cost associated with that. And then I had to rent a machine. So I ended up renting telescoping forklift, big material handler, and full big 4-wheel drive, you know, forklift basically. And I just picked them up and moved them around with that as well. So,
Did you
so these
find
pictures are. Go ahead.
did you find that, obviously being using your ingenuity and leveraging industry and these local partners, did you find that everyone was pretty receptive to helping when you approached them, or
Oh, absolutely.
yeah,
And even if they, there was a couple places where like, hey, I think there was an old tractor trailer. We're like, oh, that'd be a great hazmat prop. It was an old, like fuel tanker. And the guy was like, look, man, he goes, I'd love to give it to y'all. He's like, I can't. It's not mine.
yeah,
He told us who it belonged to, and he said, I got to get permission from them, and he said chances are they won't get rid of it. He told us straight up, and he asked and they didn't. So there was a couple times where people were like, man, I'd love to, but I just can't.
but I can't.
So,
Yeah, yeah,
but so like I said, these pictures here, this is our designs that we sketched up and started putting everything in place. So another example of taking advantage of a situation, on the base, they were ripping up the concrete road, and so we're putting this structure together, and we're like, well, we need rubble. Well, they're ripping up this 6 to 8 inch thick concrete roadway, and when they were doing it, I ran up there and said, hey, what are y'all doing with this road? They're like, oh, we're hauling it off to a crusher, which companies can make money off of crushed concrete and things like that. So sometimes it's hard to get concrete from somewhere that they can make money off of it. But this particular company, they basically said, hey, I said, oh, I'm interested if you want to just dump it right down the road instead of hauling it to wherever you got to. You can make a lot more shorter trips here and just dump it.
yeah.
And so they agreed. And so we got a huge pile of just busted up roadway concrete. Um, Now I had to go rent another excavator with a jackhammer attachment on it, and it took me about 3 or 4 days of just jackhammering, with the machine. Luckily, I didn't do it by hand. But and that's how we created our rubble pile. If you in some of these pictures that you see, any of the rubble that was that roadway, and we got that for free. And
Wow.
now, like I said, we had to bust it up. So yeah, in this picture here, in that one, that's the completed one. In that picture there, so we had put all our pipes in place to make the different access points inside the structure, and then covered it with rubble. And like I said, a lot of this stuff come from teaks. Just seeing the stuff there, and then and back to the using the crane, making sure that I maximize my crane. We had ordered a concrete top for that structure because that we just didn't have anything. So
Yeah,
went to a pre-stress in the area, a pre-stress concrete company in the area that built culverts and different things, and told them what I needed. I needed basically a slab with a manhole and some attachment points, which you can see in this other picture with the tripod there. You can see near the feet, I got anchor attachments, and that's just taking, what I knew from taking my classes, my technical rescue classes and things, some of the difficulties, that I was like, hey, anchoring down a tripod is kind of troublesome. And if we can go ahead and put anchors in the concrete, it'll definitely, especially for the beginner stuff, that will definitely help us out. So I put tons of anchor points in there, put that manway on that top there. You can see in that middle picture there, got the tripod up. They're lowering down into that manway. The structure ended up being about 9 feet uh, tall, so you couldn't just
yeah.
jump down in there. And then you can see the handrail. Back to safety, we put those handrails up. I had a welder come in, and we did aluminum just so that it wouldn't rust.
Yeah.
It was at the time aluminum was about the same price as steel, and but well, I say steel to get it, but to get steel and have it dipped in zinc to keep it from rusting. So
Interesting.
you know, yeah. So if you ever building these type of structures, definitely talk to people, welders and different things like that. You know, like I said, I have that background ready, so I knew that if I just put up steel handrails, they're going to rust over the years. We could
Yeah.
have them dipped in zinc, so I got a price on dipped, handrails versus. And then my guy told me, he's like, well, right now steel's so expensive, and then the cost of dipping, he said you might can just get aluminum and it'd be a lot, for the same
A
price,
lot
and
cheaper.
it'll look nicer. So we ended up
I
going
think
with aluminum.
that's one of the things too is like using, like you said, using your resources. Like you have a background in doing this stuff, but also like what you said is going to these other classes and taking notes of things like that went really well, but also things that don't go so well. So when you
Yep.
start building out your own kits, you can kind of apply those principles.
Yeah, and so one of the downsides of becoming a training officer, that's all, my focus when I would go to class. I mean, I was hearing the information, but I'm looking at the props. I'm looking at the style of teaching. I'm looking at, all the other. What did it take to build this class? Those are the things I'm thinking about as a training officer.
Yeah.
And whereas other guys are probably just focused on the material, I'm sitting here just watching the instructor, watching his style. So
Yeah.
but
So
so anyway, so
as you
go ahead.
progressed, right? I'm sure you learn, obviously in your case you're kind of learning as you go. So if you had some advice for someone that was just starting out, like what are some of the things that you had learned along the way that like maybe were some of the pitfalls that they could avoid to kind of maximize your effectiveness? You don't have a lot. Like what are some of the things you learned along the way that were like, hey, maybe this would have been a better approach?
um really, so getting really understanding like the full scope of what you're trying to do as far as, okay, so what, this is our vision, this is what we want to, our ultimate goal is to build all this. And I know
Yeah.
that's hard to say, like, hey, you need to have an ultimate vision, but if you can, that, man, that would be great, because kind of piecemealing it as you go. Like, so we start off with the one concrete structure with those big blocks, and we built it. We had the pipes coming out. We did the rubble, and then it was like, oh, well, we need to add on this part, and we need to do, and then it was like, well, I really don't have the resources to tear apart half this prop, to change it into, something else that we'd like to do. And so, that, and then also the money thing. So I will say, you know trying to do this as cheap as possible, because at the time we did have a lot of limited funds. I was fortunate when we first built the structure, the square structure with the blocks and everything. My chief came out, my big chief, the fire chief came out, saw what we were doing, and man, it like energized him, because things like that hadn't been built out there in years. It energized him. He was so excited, and he told me, he said, I love it. Keep it up. Keep going. He goes, whatever you need, you have my support. Well, and that's what we needed. We needed his full support, because ultimately he's the key to the money. So
Yeah.
um and so when we got started, um some of the things that made me nervous was I pretty much built all this stuff, and with help and everything, but we designed this stuff without really consulting an engineer, and
Yeah.
it was, what I'm saying, it was kind of shooting from the hip, or my chief loves to say winging it. He's like, that's all you do is wing it. And I kind of do. It's kind of how I live. I'm like, yeah, you'll figure it
Well,
out.
you guys did
I'm
a pretty damn good job for winging it.
yeah. And hey, look, it works out great for me sometimes. Sometimes it doesn't. I get egg on my face sometimes. But
Yeah.
for the most part, that's how I live my life. I just wing it, man. It's gonna be,
Yeah.
we'll figure it out. And so we definitely winged it
Yeah.
on this, and
Yeah.
we hit a home run with, and got admin, and that's the big thing. So that's kind of one of the talking points is, you know, take a little, if you don't have a whole lot, try to do a lot with a little bit, and then as you build it and progress, you'll start to gain that support. So, and some of the other things that, as you're building out these, you have all this vision to build, these training props or these different programs and things, you know, really try to think outside the box. And for us, thinking outside the box was, hey, let's go to industry. Okay, so we have some oil refineries close by. Reach out to them. Hey, what is some, call them up. Hey, what is some training that y'all would like to do that, that you're currently doing at other facilities that you're paying a lot of money? Would you be interested in possibly investing, money into our training academy, and we will, build the prop of whatever it is that you want to train on. So part of the tank, the big tank that we got out of the field, and the reason we stood up vertically was because we had reached out to industry, and they said, well, if you could build, kind of mimic a scrubber, they call it I'm not even sure what it is, but it's some type of scrubber stack where they would have to go in, and it was very difficult for them, but they would have to rappel down into this stack, and they have to get in there to clean it, and then keep, a company on standby to go in there for the confined space portion. And so that was kind of the idea in mind was, hey, we're gonna build this, and then they will come type thing, the field of dreams. So,
Yeah.
and that's, what it turned into. So if you can see in these pictures here that I put confined space. So if you notice in that first picture, those two horizontal tanks which are connected by a catwalk, those were our original tanks that were there, just sitting there being underutilized. They were just literally rusting away. And Drew actually painted those things, but that was a huge undertaking. Coating, getting rust inhibitor and painting those. That's why they look
Yeah.
so nice. But my vision was that catwalk, and you see in the middle picture there's a catwalk connecting the top of the two. Because to me, I was like, that is a real industry type of
Yeah.
situation where you have two tanks with a catwalk connecting them. And then we had, my vision was a catwalk connecting over to the vertical tank as well. So all three tanks were connected, and basically I hired a welder that built that type of catwalk structures for the oil industry. Called him in, said, this is what I need, and he drew it up, and I was fortunate, that I was able to rely on him to come up with the schematics of that, and he did it like on a napkin,
Yeah.
and all in
Wow.
his head. So now I will tell you that was probably the biggest um, monetary part of that whole project was installing the catwalks and all the handrails.
Yeah.
Like I
I mean,
said,
it
so
looks
that was
expensive.
it was all custom built. But by that time, so like I said, we didn't have a whole lot to start with. By the time we got to that point in the project, our chief was so excited about the potential of these props. And I'll go ahead and tell you, it was $70,000 in aluminum
Wow.
work to do all that, and he gave his blessing. Like I said, we're fortunate that we have a good bit of money for set aside for capital projects, and he gave us his blessing. So once we finished that, and in the next slides here, I acquired some more block that was sitting in a field. These blocks belong to the military. They had them for years in the back of the base that we're currently on, and I was able to go and persuade them into donating the block to us. So
Yeah.
technically, that is still their block that belongs
Yeah.
to the military that
So
we are utilizing. And in
call it
these
tactically
pictures,
acquiring.
yes, technically
They'll ask
acquired.
for it back in 2042.
Yeah, and, but so one of the huge struggles for our area is the water tables is very high. So if you dig down deep enough, you just all of a sudden it just starts filling up with water. So doing a trench class, is a big deal for us because if we dig a hole, we come back the next day, it's completely full of water. So
Yeah.
building an above ground trench was something that I took away from Mississippi State Fire Academy. They had basically built a concrete formed T trench and then took dirt and piled all around the outside of it and built this big massive trench prop. And I was like, well, how can I do that without having to bring all that dirt in, because that was a ton of money, forming all that concrete because that's a ton of money. So
Yeah.
acquired these blocks, and you can see these pictures, and kind of remind me of like building the pyramids is what it felt like. You can see in the middle picture. I wanted it wide enough that I could get that little bobcat or skid steer in there so that I could move dirt around if I needed to. We could
Yeah.
simulate, but it's an above ground trench, and to kind of give the guys somewhere to stand and work off of. We in the third picture there, you can see the Connex boxes. So we built this T trench. It's about 9 foot high, and then put the Connex boxes in the side there for some work, give them somewhere to work off of. And
Yeah.
then the idea was now we have storage for all the fin boards and all the struts and all the equipment that goes with trench, and um, I can keep it all safe in those boxes as well. So um, it so
No, it's
we kind of
genius.
hit a we
And
go ahead.
it's one of those things that I don't even like, and Will, I don't know about you, like things you don't even think of like some of the environmental training limitations of where you are in the country, or like where some places in the Northeast, in the Metro Boston area, the water table's pretty high too, but like that you might not be able to conduct these types of trainings just due to the environment that you're in. So trying to be innovative and doing literally building an above grade trench, I've never even heard, but I mean it makes total sense.
Yeah,
I mean, up here you could run into like frozen ground in the winter.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Like different every like you said, everywhere's got their kind of unique challenge.
yeah,
yeah,
and yeah, especially taking classes out west. We been all over the country taking classes, and yeah, it's really neat to see how people adapt and overcome some of the environmental issues when it comes to training that they have
yeah,
to deal with. Especially in the mountainous areas where they got that extremely hard soil, with the rocks and everything. How they adapt and overcome that. And so for us, like I said, being in a very low lying area, um, actually, our our area, to me, I've been up the East Coast. I've made it all the way to Boston yet, but from Virginia all the way up through Jersey to New York, along the shore, like it reminds me of here. It's
yeah.
pretty much the same.
Right.
As far as the marshy landscape, and so, but so that's on the as far as props go. That's kind of the big thing is just try to take advantage of opportunities. Don't be scared to get out there and ask. And go go travel around a little bit. Go see what's going on. And if you can't travel, I'll tell you one place I've looked a lot at is Illinois State Fire Academy. Their grounds are amazing. Now
Really,
the only way I could see it was from Google Earth, so I spent a lot of time trying to zoom in and see,
yeah,
how exactly did they get that prop, because they have some big rubble piles out there in Illinois on their grounds. And so I hope to get out there one day. They do a booth every year at FDIC. I talk to them every year that I'm there. I stop and talk to them and tell them how I want to come for a visit and steal their ideas, and they laugh and they tell us come
Yeah.
on,
come on
and
down. Yeah.
I
yep.
think
But
I think that's I think that sorry, I totally lost my train of thought on that
well,
No worries.
one.
we'll tell you,
I completely lost
Chief.
my train of thought on that.
Chief, I remember when I first started to Training Academy, and we, like I said, we were trying to get ideas. We went to him and said, "Do you mind if we did like a 3 or 4 day, 5 day road trip around the South? To go to Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee, and go to different training facilities." and he was good with it. We never did take him up on it, just because we were so busy. It was hard to get away, just to go ride around and look at stuff.
Right.
But when like I said, when I do travel, I'm always keeping an eye out and on trying to just get ideas. You'll pass by something that someone built that wasn't even meant for the fire service, and you'll see it and you'll be like, oh, well, I could do that, and we could use it for this, and this, and
Right.
Yeah.
so always
What
keeping
I
your
was gonna say,
your eyes open.
I was gonna say is like you were talking about reaching out to people too. So like what we found through doing this is like reaching out to people is people want to talk about the fire service and they are almost always more than happy to help when we've reached out. And I'm sure it's the same thing in this scenario. Just reach out and talk to people about whether it's materials or it's like how they're doing it or what they're doing, like just reaching out and getting advice from people and I'm sure that they're happy to share it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And myself included, I love when people, ask me how'd you do that? I will gladly tell you, there's
Right.
no reason to keep everything a secret, and
No, and that's why I thought it was so important, and why you were the person that I thought of is like being able to be have some ingenuity, think outside the box, and develop, not something from nothing, but find creative ways to build. What you guys built is a pretty phenomenal regional, and it's now a national resource with CMC there. So just being and it's heartening because when you're talking about, hey, just be creative, don't be afraid to reach out to people.
yeah,
And like Will was saying, like a lot of times we find with the show, and like even like we kept in touch, but like always like people will always be willing to help, but even like reaching out to you is like, oh, I don't want to bother, I don't want to waste his time, and then like, but you find out like people are always more than willing to share, and like guys and gals that care about the fire service are always willing to share and pass on information.
Yeah.
absolutely. And, you know, and kind of going back to, when I go to FDIC, kind of you get an opportunity to sit in classes and meet, some of the pillars of the fire service. And after their lectures are over, you're kind of like, well, I don't want to bother them,
Yeah.
but you really want to meet them. And 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 so I'll say, like example, this year Mike Champo, uh, always watch his videos on fire engineering. Just always kind of been a big fan of him, like his stuff. Sat through his lecture, enjoyed his lecture, and of course, after there was a big crowd wanting to talk to him, take pictures, and I was like, you know what? I'm about to be a fanboy for a minute. I'm about to
Yeah.
stand in line and wait my turn and have to take I gave him a challenge coin and took a picture with talked to him and he took time though. He took time
Yeah.
and talked to me for a second and we had a good little conversation and um and so and then he gave me his card. He said, if you ever need anything, you call me. And I'm like, you're Mike Champa. You don't have
Yeah.
time to. And he was like, no. He said, if I don't respond to this email, he's like, send it to this email. And he's like, I'll definitely, I'll get back to you, whatever you need. And I was like, man, that's so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so definitely reach out to people. That's what I found as a training officer, and well, just in the fire service in general, networking. I'm sitting here today because of networking.
Yeah.
Uh, took a class
Likewise.
with Barry, and struck up a friendship, and so when you go to classes and you get to, anytime there's someone outside your department, take the opportunity, talk to them, see what they know, who they know,
Yeah.
what are they capable of, and
Yep.
you can accomplish so much. Like I told you early on, as soon as we started, this was never just me. Um, you know, um, it's a group effort, and actually, in some of my pictures, that was one of the things I was going to tell you, from the previous slides was once we acquired all these materials and all this, we uh, then it was like, well, I didn't have any concrete breakers or anything and so I needed the tops of those blocks. They had these little pitches to them at the center to keep them interlocked. Well, I needed them taken off for for this concrete slab to sit on the top. And I was like, well, how am I going to do that? I'm just one person. There's only two training officers. My chief of training, he ain't got time for this. My other training officer, he had a lot going on. I'm like, so it's up to me to get all this concrete busted off. And then I was like, well, how can I do this? And then I was driving I was passing Home Depot and I saw a Hilti pickup truck. And I was like, all right, I've seen it before, just never run through my
Yeah.
mind. But I saw it sitting there, and I was like, and I used Hilti tools at Teeks for breaching and breaking, and I'm like, oh, that's a rep. Let me, I bet you they can help me out. So I stopped, found the rep inside the store at Home Depot, told them what I was needing. I said, I want y'all to come do a demo. And so they said absolutely. So Hilti showed up in one of those pictures you can see. They showed up with three trucks full of brand new Hilti tools and bits. And where'd it go? Let's see. So that's them lined up. And like I said, I was so proud of myself that I was like, oh yeah, I got them. So the next picture, guess what those guys are doing right there? So not only did I call Hilti for a demo, so they got to come out and demo their product. Then I turned it into a company drill. So now I got my guys coming out, cycling through the day, and they're getting to run these tools and actually breach and break concrete. And I was like, but this is what I need you to break. And you can see the line in the
This
center.
area right here.
Yeah. I was like, so y'all just focus on these. I need all these lips broken off right here. And they love doing it because they only had to do it for 10-15 minutes, and then it was on to the next guy, and everybody was
Yeah.
excited to put their hands on the tools and get to actually bust up some concrete. And guess who didn't have to do it? I didn't have to break my back, and it was just, and that was one of them aha moments. I was like, oh man, so from then on, if we can get a vendor to come out and do demos, and help achieve any goals that we're trying to do, then take advantage of it. So,
Absolutely.
but
So as far as like, so obviously we did a deep dive into creating a training facility essentially from day one to now you guys have a robust facility, which we'll obviously get into talking about CMC. But so once you have the facility, right, how do you, and this is something that Will and John and myself are hoping to do, is develop some organic training programs. What advice or thoughts do you have on like how do you go about once you have the space, you have the facility, what tips and tricks or things you learned along the way to develop a training program once you got everything you need and you're good to go? What how do you do the
so
program?
so basically, in a nutshell, you have to choose what you're passionate about, right? So I love technical rescue. And so at the time, like I said, it was just me and one other training officer. And then Tim Harrison came on board, who you met, Barry. He
Yep.
came on board as a third training officer because once we started building all this, then we said, hey, there's a need for another training officer. So we got more staff. So we're expanding our training academy just off of building these props, and we hadn't even used them yet, really. We've used them in house internally, on some things, but we really hadn't brought anybody from the outside in to use our props yet. But we were already showing that we needed more staffing, and we got it. And so then when Tim came along, um, we had a lot of things built and in place, and Tim was helping with a lot of that, helping me, uh, with the construction stuff. And then, um, well, I'd always been passionate about technical rescue, and so um, I went to my chief and I said, "Look, we built the confined space, we got the tower, we ended up buying a affordable drill tower. We saw it at FDIC. They had it one set up. I highly recommend it if anybody's ever looking for an affordable drill tower. It's called Affordable Drill Towers,
I was gonna say
Scaffold
that's the
I've
Tower.
name,
seen
isn't it?
I've seen those on social media a bunch.
Yeah, and look." after it was built, I was kind of like, that's it. But I mean, it's functional, it works. I'm like, but with a little bit of time, I could have probably done that. But you know what? They did a great job. They came in, they set everything up, and they had it knocked out in a day and a half. We had a brand new tower next to our existing tower, and so you know now we have another training officer. We've got, because we built the other stuff. The tower that we bought was a $90,000 tower, um, and we put it where it's located because of the our vision for our rope program. We wanted to be able to do high lines from tower to tower. So we ended up moving our CPAC course and putting our tower there. So we had to pour more concrete for our CPAC. So it was a big undertaking. But by this time, like I said, after building all that up, they admin started trusting our vision. You know, my chief's vision, and really allowing us to make it our own. And so we chose, I chose technical rescue, and I wanted to, but in order to teach all that, one, it'd been a minute since I'd taken a class, and two, you need to be a subject matter expert in whatever it is you're teaching, right? Because there's nothing worse than getting up in front of your peers, and you get asked a question and you don't know the answer, right? um, you just lose all credibility. And um, so basically we said, all right, well, we're going to reach out to outside sources to basically retrain ourselves. So that's how we end up in Miami. So went to my chief and I was like, hey, look, you want us teaching technical rescue and rope and all this? We need to be the experts. And we're going to start off with CMC rope 1 and 2, and we just happened to choose Miami. I mean, so kind of the perk. I mean, yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
you know,
it's the
so
only one available.
right. So we ended up down in Miami, and then the other two guys with me and Tim, Dean and Drew. So we kind of had a cadre of instructors that us four were like, all right, we're gonna be the rope guys. We're gonna teach everybody. And so we headed down to Miami. We did CMC. we When we got back from CMC, once again, we want to be subject matter experts. We became SPRAT certified, industrial rope access certified, and so that's industry rope. Doesn't really pertain to what we do, but you know what? It made us that much better, and and gave us a different tools for our toolbox. And basically learned a different flavor of how to approach things. And so, we went out, found outside sources, and just really tried to immerse ourselves in the subject area that we wanted to teach. And then once we did all that, um, you know, sit down. I promise, start reading books. Start, just keep educating yourself. Like I said, you want to know this stuff inside and out. If you're building out this training program. And then once you are that expert, then you start with some small presentation and lectures. You kind of get your feet wet, and then you start to build on those lectures. You become more polished with your information. It just kind of flows out. We've all had those instructors, right? You go to a class and the guy just everything rolls off his tongue. He's got the answer to everything, and you're like, man, this is one smart dude. And chances are they are a very smart individual, but also understand this is probably his 50th time giving this
Teaching the
information,
class.
and he's
Yeah.
he's well polished and he sounds amazing. Um, but um, but also understand, you're the subject matter expert in this particular field, in this area. You know, I got a guy, being the guru of technical rescue. Well, if I go ask him about fire behavior, he might not know a whole lot about it. So, just understand that. But and then once you've kind of built your program out and you've grown it, I would, definitely take your time. Do not get in a hurry. Don't think you're gonna take on the world, giving all your information out in your lectures, right out the gate, because you're gonna stumble. But and then slowly expand your audience. So you want to start, with your department or local departments, and then slowly expand. Once you get very comfortable, look at regional conferences, in your area. Um, Over the past few years, I've kind of become more knowledgeable about these regional classes and conferences around the country. Um, by getting on Facebook and starting to see and like pages, and it spills over into information you see on social media. I took a class in Virginia, a truckee class in Smithfield, Virginia, this past March. I never even heard of it until a few months ago. One of my guys sent me a link, and he's like, "Hey man, you want to go to this with me?" I had no idea this class even existed, and it was a great experience. But so start off, small, and start working your way into, some of these local conferences and shows and things like that that you can, really give out your information. So,
Yeah.
um, but just immerse yourself. So, and I will tell you this, and for me personally, um, if I'm interested in it, I put everything I got into it. If I'm not, you definitely can tell. Like it's,
Yeah.
I'm gonna wing it. I'm gonna half-ass it. It's, so, and being a training officer, you can't really just half-ass it. So,
Yeah.
um,
You
and
gotta care.
so, yeah, and you know, how do you get fired up about, hey, this week we're doing safety officer?
Yeah.
How do you get excited about that? So,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
some guys do, but
Awesome. So
definitely, when you're building those programs out, man, you gotta pick something you love and you're passionate about. Go back to Tim Harrison. He's doing fire behavior right now, and early on in his career, he almost got killed because someone made a horrible decision, as far as ventilation and making an interior attack, and not coordinating things, and he almost got burned up in a flashover. And from that day forward, he was extremely interested in fire behavior,
yeah.
and so he's built an amazing class and program out, dealing with fire behavior, and he's so knowledgeable with everything with fire behavior. Um, and then, uh, our other training officer we have now, we got one of our trainers retired, so got another one, a dean, which was in our class in Miami, Dean Marullo. He's, his particular topic he chose he's very passionate about is pumping. And so this guy will blow you out the water with pumping a truck and how to get the
Yeah.
maximize water and flow. And man, these guys are so quick and knowledgeable with their information because they have submersed themselves in this information. This is what they're passionate about, and they're
Yeah.
the go-to guys for that. For
Yeah.
our entire department. If you make a phone call to Slidell Fire and you're like, hey, we got some interest in fire behavior, they're gonna say, well, you need to talk to Tim Harrison. Or if, hey, we need
Yeah.
we need a advanced pump class, well, you're gonna talk to Dean Marullo. So,
Yeah.
definitely find your niche, whatever it is, and just immerse yourself. So, and you'll build out a good program. It takes time, but, um, and then as far as, opportunities as a training facility, and I'll talk about CMC Rescue for a minute. So, and I'll go ahead and tell the story. When we're in Miami, we're building all this. So we're building all this stuff back home. We're building all these props. We go down to Miami, and so the director of CMC classes, Wayne Chapman, he's in our, teaching our class, and, he is the boss when it comes to the school CMC schools. And, we're sitting there at lunch one day, and I was like, Wayne, no disrespect to Miami, the city of Miami, not Miami-Dade now, Miami.
I know.
I
I had to
said,
learn. I had to learn the difference.
Yeah, I said no disrespect to Miami. They had a wonderful facility. I said, but I said we can do this just as well or better, at our facility. And so Wayne said, okay, well, send me some pictures. And so I did. I sent him some pictures, and then he goes, all right. He said, well, look, he said, it looks promising. He said, we're looking for another place, near a large city to have a more southern presence, southeastern presence. And he said, we want to come to a site visit. Awesome. And so him and what's his name? He's from Wisconsin with CMC. He's always on their podcast. I can't remember his
Oh,
name at the moment.
I know
Uh,
what you're talking about.
It'll come to me in a second. But so them two came down, and within about now, before I tell you what happened, I will tell you this. So I knew Wayne was coming, and I remember our conversations talking with Wayne. He was retired uh, helicopter. Uh, what was it? He was the crane operator on the helicopter or something like that.
Yeah, out in
Couldn't remember
California.
exactly. Yeah, out in California on the FEMA team. Well, we also had struck up a partnership at our training facility with the Coast Guard, and so in these pictures here that I have right here, and the reason I'm telling you all this is because to make sure that I secured this deal with CMC, I called the Coast Guard, who we'd done training with before, and I said, "Hey, look," and they called. Well, they had reached out to us, said, "Hey, we want to come do some training. We need some dates." So I called them back. I said, "Look." Wayne gave me his date that he'd like to come. I said, "Look, man," I said, can y'all do this day?" And they said, "Yeah, that'll work." So,
Fuck yeah.
um,
That's awesome.
so kind of behind the scenes, I'm playing, and I'm like, all right, I'm about to get in his wheelhouse, and I'm about to make sure I secure this. So
Butter him up.
as we're walking around the grounds and looking at all the props and everything, the Coast Guard's there, and then the helicopter flies in, and they're hovering, and they're doing hoist operations right off the top of our tower. And I look at Wayne, and I said, "Hey," I said, "you want to go up there?" Like we were right there at the top of the building, right under the rotor wash, like just
Yeah.
in the middle of it. I mean, the helicopter was so loud. Wayne was smiling ear to ear, like he was just so happy because here he is again, like right
Yeah.
in the mix of this training, and that's right up his alley. That's what he loved. That's what because he
Yeah.
always talked about it.
Yeah.
And so they got done, and he come down, and he just the rest of the day he just smiled, man. He was
Yeah.
so happy, and I'm like, oh yeah, I got him. And so that's the next picture. There was after we talked a minute, he said, "All right, well, I think we're gonna we can definitely go ahead and do rope 1 and 2, and we can do confined space here." And he said, "I'll go ahead and get you a contract by the end of the week, and we'll sign off and get it going." And so that picture there was us, that day. I'm sitting there shaking his hand, and
Yeah.
so that was, but that was just me, being a little aggressive and kind of, going to Wayne and taking the chance, taking advantage of the opportunity of having the director of CMC schools, you know, in my presence, and why not?
Yeah.
I pitched it to him.
Yeah.
Worst he can do is tell me no, and so for those that are unaware, CMC does classes. They do them up y'all's way in New Hampshire. They do them out in Bend, Oregon, Colorado, Miami, Las Vegas, California, and that was kind of their staple, locations. And they would do other locations, as requested and things like that. So now Slidell is one of these places now, as far as Bend, Oregon, and Concord, New Hampshire, and Rifle, Colorado, Vegas, and all that, in Miami. Here, little old Slidell, we're in that mix, we're in that conversation, and so that's something that I've been extremely proud of, with facilitating that and getting them,
Yeah.
to come to our facility and do this. And then when they come, so there's the next slide here. The first time they came, you can see in the middle there's a live crawfish with all their gear. That was kind of a little little promo I threw up to
Yeah.
them. I emailed it to them, said, here, throw this on y'all's Facebook, on your social media, put Slidell, Louisiana, and then we when they come for the rope 1 and 2 class, it's crawfish season in March when they come down in March to do rope 1 and 2, and we always do a crawfish boil for the class.
That's
And
awesome.
and then and yeah, it's always a good time because we've had people from all over the country, come to our facility now. And the last group I think was from Idaho. I think it was. There was some from Idaho who never, tried crawfish. They were super excited, and so
Yeah.
it's always fun to get to meet people and share, especially our crawfish. We love our crawfish down here, and
Yeah.
share that experience with them. And
Well,
so
well,
CMC, man, the CMC stuff's been great.
yeah.
So
Well deserved that you
That's
guys
great.
ended up with that. So kind of,
man, it's
so
it's been great.
closing, closing things out, right? Do you
Okay.
want to talk about some of the free training opportunities that like when we initially talked, like some of them I wasn't even aware of. So do you want to kind of round it out with
Yeah.
a lot of these things that people might
So
not
I
otherwise
have
be
this
aware of?
here. I didn't put the websites, but I can get those links to you. So if you just go, so to start off with, if it, this, and I learned this at my first department. I told you we didn't have a whole lot for training, and I'm looking for opportunities, and someone put me on to this. So it's the NDPC, the National Domestic Preparedness Consortium. If you just Google NDPC, and then go to the training partners. You'll have all the different schools, and I'll run through them real quick. You got the Center for Domestic Preparedness in Anniston, Alabama. All a bunch of hazmat stuff. There's some police training in there as well for weapons of mass destruction stuff. Then you have the Energetic Materials Research and Testing Center. That is not Pueblo. That's Socorro, New Mexico. That's the bomb classes. You go out on the range and they blow up cars. And there's a suicide class that they do a suicide bomber. And so there's a couple classes there and you can take. And keep in mind, all these classes I'm listing out, they're fully uh, Department of Homeland Security funded. It includes your flights, your car, your hotel. They give you mileage to the airport. They give you per diem during the day for meals.
Wow.
So yeah, it's 100% paid for. They'll uh, everything short of basically backfilling your position at the station to allow you to go, because it's not considered a disaster or anything. But so then the rest, you keep going here. Texas A&M TEACS is on the list. They have a incident command class. They have one class that you can take out at TEACS. So if you ever want to go to TEACS, they do have an incident command class there in their facility. I got a really cool facility there for that. The nuclear training out in Las Vegas, the National Nuclear Security Administration, or CTOS. That one, you go out to Vegas, and then they basically ship you out to the desert where they did the first atomic bombs out, testing. You go out to that range out there, and you do some really cool stuff out there. Um, then Oh, I skipped one here. National Center for Biomedical Research and Training. That's all strictly online. That's with LSU out of Louisiana, but they come to you with some training, so you can get on there. And a lot of these facilities, do a lot of training that will come to you as well. So if you want to get them at your facility, they'll definitely do that. The only one that you probably will not be able to attend is, like I said, the one at LSU, and then there's one in Hawaii, the National Disaster Preparedness Training Center in Hawaii, dealing with
That's the one I want to
tsunamis and
go to.
hurricanes. Right. You can go to those classes for free. They will not pay your airfare and hotel and all that. But
Dang
if you fly yourself out there, you are more than welcome to attend the class. But they do a
it.
lot of stuff stateside, lower 48. They do, around the country. They'll go to different facilities and do that type of training. And then last one on the list here, CERTSI. Basically it's hazmat, highway, and rail response for hazmat. Uh, great classes out in Pueblo, Colorado. Great time. So definitely look into those. Also have on here the National Fire Academy. A lot of guys get intimidated by the National Fire Academy. They got to think they need to have a degree or be an officer or something. They have some span of control classes that are meant for lower level, um, firefighting guys, and then inspector investigator classes. There are available there too. So if anybody wants to really, kind of get off into inspector investigator, I would recommend getting your state certifications first with those, the NFPA. I mean, not NFPA, the FSAC certificates, and then potentially looking into those classes. They're a little more advanced, but and then everyone always hears of the executive fire officer (EFO). You got to have a bachelor's degree to get into that, but if you're not, college isn't for everybody. Um, so they have a managing officers program, which is kind of like a mini version of that, and you don't have to have a degree or anything to get into that. You might have to have an associate's degree, but a little easier to obtain. And then another one for anybody interested in emergency management, which I know is not really exciting, but there's definitely some opportunities in emergency management. But the Emergency Management Institute, it's on the same campus as National Fire Academy. They share a campus in Emmitsburg, Maryland. Um, you can only go to National Fire Academy once a year, but you can go to EMI as many times as you want. So,
Interesting.
and they'll fly you up. They pay for everything with that as well, except for the meal plan. So both of those, when you do attend National Fire Academy or EMI, the only cost associated is you have to buy the meal plan to stay on campus, and so that's the basically the cost associated with those.
Yeah, the cost.
Which it's like $300
Oh, it's not
for the
terrible.
week. I think it's 300 for 2 weeks, so it's like 100 something bucks for the week.
Not bad.
And then the last, wrapping it up here. So this is a really good one for fire behavior. Fire Safety Research Institute. They're with paired up with UL. Uh, I don't know if anybody listening, if you ever try to sit through a UL study, it's kind of dry, and it's a lot of scientific data thrown at you. The Safety Research Institute has done a great job of kind of, I like to call it bubbifying, uh, you know, the information so that even old Bubba can understand, and then kind of round out here, NIST. So they have some classes online as well. With just click on their Engineering Laboratory Fire Research Division, and they have a couple different areas like structural collapse, fire behavior. Like, it's very broad. So they have a bunch of stuff on NIST. Great information, videos, and classes that you can take on there. And then the last one, wrap it up, is kind of obscure. A lot of people don't know about it. It's the Rural Domestic Preparedness Consortium. Um, and they don't have a whole lot of classes, but it is free training. And some of it is online, and some of it they will come to you, or they'll host training in certain towns, and you can attend it for free. So just just some stuff for guys. I always try to pass on that free training, because guys are always looking for some type of training that they can do or possibly go to, and like I said, then that's what builds that networking. Going off to these classes, especially the domestic preparedness consortium, Vegas, New Mexico, Colorado. Man, I've met FDNY all the way to Seattle, Washington. Guys
Yeah,
that I still stay in contact with from those classes.
That's
So,
yeah,
awesome.
absolutely.
but
Well,
yeah, no,
Austin,
I'll
I
shoot you all
can't.
those links and everything. I just sent
Yeah,
an
no, we'll definitely post them, and we can't thank you enough for your time. It's like you said, like, get out there and take training classes. These relationships you develop, like, friendships, becoming friends with you and the gang, and
absolutely.
I just want to say thank you
And
so
and
much for
look,
your time.
my big Absolutely. I mean, I appreciate it. And look, the last thing I just want to end with is, anybody that's in training, just stay humble. Don't think you can do it all, man. Like, and spread the wealth. Whatever you learn, pass it on. There's no point in keeping it all to yourself, because there's no way for you to know everything. So
Right.
Yeah.
can't be good at it all, every single aspect of this job. So
Yeah.
As Barry likes to say, you only have so much bandwidth.
yep, absolutely.
You know.
And
So
I have dial up, so not a lot of bandwidth.
so
So, well, Austin, thank you so much for your time. I hope to see you sooner rather than later, man.
absolutely, buddy.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
All
If
right. Take,
you're ever up in the Boston area, let us know for sure.
Yeah,
yeah.
I definitely will come see you guys.
All
Awesome.
right.
Awesome. We'd love
All
to.
right.
All right.
Will, you want to take us out?
Yeah, so everybody, thanks for tuning in this week with Austin Graham. Some good information, obviously, on building a training regimen and facilities from little to no budget or as big of a budget as you have. We really appreciate the info. We'll see you guys in 2 weeks for our next episode. And I'm not going to steal Johnny's line, so we'll just say see you later.
All right.
All right, guys.